Before we get into this episode, I would just like to issue some trigger warnings. These consist of murder, abuse, violence, alcoholism, and trauma. If any of these are triggering, please click off and take care of yourself. And hopefully I'll see you in another episode. There's been a lot of research done to do this episode. Where we got information from will be links in the description. Everything here is solely my opinion and research. Ed Gein was a prominent killer in the 1950s. But why did he do it? Let's talk about his mindset. Ed Gein gained a legacy throughout media. There's been films based off him, for example, such as Silence of the Lambs, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho, and a new documentary, Monsters, Ed Gein. We are going to start by looking into Ed Gein's upbringing, taking a look at his childhood, and also looking into his parents' relationship. So let's start off with his childhood. Ed Gein was a son to his parents, Augusta Gein and George Gein, and a brother to his older brother, Henry. Now let's start with taking a bit of a look into the parents' backgrounds. Starting off with George, he was born in Bergen, Wisconsin, in the USA, 4th of August, 1873. With doing research, we couldn't find anything about George's upbringing, so therefore we cannot talk about it. But continuing to look at George, we know he struggled to keep a full-time job, having many jobs such as a carpenter, firefighter, tanner, an insurance salesman, and even owning his own grocery store. Augusta was born on the 21st of July, 1878, in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Augusta was raised within a large family, and this family was heavily religious. Augusta was known to take beatings often of her father for things that would be considered minor. This information came from a 1989 book, Deviant, by true crime writer Harold Shater. Due to this, Augusta became heavily religious and dominant. Augusta was known to read a lot of religious books, and this comes from her religion. George and Augusta Gein got married on December 11th, 1900. They ended up moving to an isolated farm with their two sons, Henry and Ed. This is when things started taking a turn in the Gein household. George was known as a violent alcoholic and an abusive person. He would abuse his son Ed and Henry. With this, George and Augusta's relationship took a turn because of her religious background and because of her childhood. She turned very strict. Augusta hated sex and alcohol, so that made her hate George, and their marriage yet again was crumbling because of this. Augusta Wilman Gein was a God-fearing woman who tried to instill in her son that sex was evil and women were instruments of the devil. This came from a snippet of the New Zealand Herald. Because of Augusta's background, she found it hard to leave George, which means she started to despise all men until her son Ed was born. It was also known that she favoured Ed over Henry. Growing up, Ed Gein was very shy and sensitive. This comes down to his overprotective mother, Augusta. At the age of 8, the Gein family decided to move to an isolated farm because of the immortality of the city. The closest neighbourhood to the Gein family was almost a mile away. Continuing on, at the age of 8, Ed and his brother Henry started school with 12 students. Ed was known as an excellent reader. However, Ed was shunned and isolated for his looks and his shyness. While at school, Ed attempted to make friends, but he was severely punished by his mother. Augusta would verbally abuse both her sons. Because of Ed's looks, he would often be bullied by his peers and would go home crying, and this caused him to get punished by his dad, who would repeatedly beat him in the head until his ears started ringing. In 1944, Ed Gein's older brother Henry died in a mysterious fire. Some people speculate that it was actually Ed who killed him, but we haven't found any further information on that. The case was ruled an accident, and no autopsy was done on Henry's body to get more information. In 1954, this is when Ed Gein's first victim. This was Ed Gein's first victim. Her name was Mary Hogan. Mary Hogan was a local tavern owner who suddenly disappeared. She went missing and was last seen on the 8th of December 1954. She was shot in her own tavern with a revolver. When police went to investigate, they only found bloodstains and bullet casings. But when discovering Gein's farm, they ended up finding Mary Hogan's head there. This was the first case Gein had been charged with. There have been suspicions that Ed Gein was involved in 2 disappearances. The first one being in 1947, the disappearance of Georgia Weckler, and the other case being in 1953, the disappearance of Evelyn Hartley. Although there was suspicions that Gein was involved in these cases, he never got charged for them as there was no evidence that it could be proven that he was linked to these disappearances. In 1957, this is when Gein struck again and took his second victim. Her name was Bernice Worden. She was a hardware store owner, and Gein was the last person to be seen with her before her disappearance. Gein ended up purchasing something on the day of her disappearance. It was also known that Gein robbed Bernice in her hardware store that she owned. Bernice's son was a deputy on this specific case and had some suspicions that Ed Gein was the person who did it, and found him quite odd. Her body was found headless and strung up in Gein's farm. With more information from the son, who yet again was a deputy, it was said that Gein tried to invite Miss Worden to go roller skating with him, but she ended up refusing to go with him. When the deputy went back to the store, they had found bloodstains around the store and the cash register was stolen. When going to Ed Gein's farm, there was 10 human skulls found around the farm and also human organs, but when confronting Gein on this, he said he couldn't remember if he actually killed the people or if he was robbing graves. Gein also admitted to have been killing for 7 years after he got found out. Portage County Sheriff Herbert Ranowski said Gein told a conflicting story, and at one time he said he robbed graves to get skulls and bones in the house. There were some suspicious items found around Gein's property, such as organs, skulls, newspaper clippings of women who went missing in Wisconsin, and child's clothing, and also furniture that was made out of human remains. Ed Gein's lawyer, William Beller, pleaded the case not guilty due to insanity, and in 1858, Ed Gein was deemed unfit because he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Ed Gein was then committed to Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. Gein was in hospital until 1968, where he was finally deemed fit enough to go to trial. In early November in 1968, Gein was found guilty of the killing of Bernice Worden and was charged for the first-degree murder, and it was decided that he would spend the rest of his life in a mental health institution. In 1984, Gein passed away due to heart failure. Because of Gein's schizophrenia, it was uncertain of how many people he had actually killed, only knowing the 2 killings which he was charged for, which was Bernice Worden and Mary Hogan. Knowing that there was many body parts found throughout his property, but he can't remember if he actually did it or not. This comes down to his schizophrenia, which made it hard for him to remember if he killed them or not. As I mentioned, Ed Gein gained a legacy through many popular films, but not also that. There's novels, TV shows, documents, and even podcasts still talking about what he did. I guess we will never really know why Ed Gein committed the crimes that he did. Was it because of his upbringing? Did he have some sort of anger? Did he resent the way he was raised? Was it just out of spite? Or could it be because of his schizophrenia? I'm going to break this off here. That's the end of this little talking bit about Ed Gein. This is my first time taking a twist onto mindset. I really hope you enjoy it, and it was super cool doing a different type of research for this, and just getting to delve deep into something new. I'm still going to talk about mental health, but we're definitely going to take a turn into making sure that this is also something I want to do, like looking into serial killers or killers that have different mental illnesses so I can talk about them. For schizophrenia, all I can say is I recommend you get help. It's one of the biggest things that I can recommend, even if you're not schizophrenic. Just in general, if you are struggling, please go reach out and get the help that you need, because it's super important. And even though it's scary, it's always hard to take a massive step into that kind of door. But when you get your foot into the door, you don't realise how much things can change. Yeah, again, this is super exciting, and we're definitely going to continue down with this route. 100% let me know what you think of this. I'm pretty sure the episode's pretty short, because as much as I had a lot of research, there wasn't like a lot, but yeah, I really enjoyed coming back to mindset. I have been away for quite a bit, but we're going to start working on episodes a lot more and trying to get them out as much as I can. But Ed Gein was a prominent killer in the 1950s. But why did he do it? I guess we'll never know his mindset.